Hello, I'm Janet Hogan, and welcome to this mini webinar, Accelerate Your Business Growth by Deactivating Your Antihero. Now, they call me the Breakthrough Queen, and there's nothing I love more than helping entrepreneurs maximize their prosperity by embracing their unique ability to make a difference. But as a six-time entrepreneur myself, I know how tough that is. And so this webinar is designed to help you unlock one of the issues that might be affecting you from achieving the success that you want and that, let's face it, you deserve. You've taken the risk, so you deserve to get what you want. So first of all, let's just find out how likely it is that your antihero is playing too loud in your life. And here are some of the symptoms. It's not an exhaustive list, but just see if any of these resonate with you. Okay, so firstly, do you ever experience overwhelm and or exhaustion? So that sense of you've bitten off more than you can chew and you get to a point where you actually don't know where to turn next. This is likely to be driven by a fear of failure. And some people are very aware that they have this fear, whereas others are not so aware of that. So are you aware that, that failure is something that you tend to take very personally and that it's just not an option for you? So that's another sign that your antihero might be playing up too loud. Do you have this unrelenting desire to succeed? Is it like something that is almost like not necessarily coming from within, but a desire to prove to others that you've got what it takes to, make that target, whatever that target is? Do you ever sense when you're, not in that I can do anything mode that in fact you're not good enough for whatever reason, or maybe even just that you're not enough? And finally, do you ever find yourself in this place where you feel incredibly alone, isolated, as if the weight of the world is on your shoulders, but you've got no one to share it with? Okay, so if you relate to any of those or even all of those, don't worry, you're not alone. I've definitely I can tick all of those boxes. And what I'm going to share with you today is a piece that hopefully will take away some of the pressure that you might be applying on yourself. So essentially, if we look at a business and what makes a business successful, there are three pillars that I see are common to all those enterprises that are successful, not just financially, but in terms of quality of life. In other words, that they give you, the entrepreneur, something back that is enough that makes you justify wanting to get out of bed in the morning. And here are the three pillars. And the first one is one that is a word that actually used to make me cringe. And I know in hindsight, the reason for that was simply that I didn't have any of it. And it is, and maybe it's a bit of a cliche, but honestly, this is the very number one vital ingredient if you're going to be successful in life. Whatever you do, you're going to need bundles of this one, and it is passion. Why is passion so important? And why do so few of us feel genuine passion? Because usually it's masked under pain. And because we're naturally pain adverse, we don't want to confront pain, we run away from it. When we're doing that, we're denying ourselves the pleasure of feeling passion. So when you can actually confront that fear that is driving you, the wonderful thing in that is that pain, the energy of pain, if you like, changes into the energy of passion. However, passion alone is not going to get you across the line of business success, because passion in and of itself is unformed energy. It's like like a fireman's hose. You can spray it everywhere and not have any impact. So what we need to do with the energy of passion is direct it into something. And what is that something? That something is what you are naturally wired to do. So it's your natural aptitude. There is something, and maybe you're not very clear on it, or particularly, I've worked with many people in the business entrepreneur space, and one of the issues they face is that they're good at too many things. So they don't actually know where to focus their passion. But you must find out what it is, that pinpoint where you need to pour your passion into. So let's call that your power or your super strength. Now, are those two things alone? Passion, directed towards your particular super strength, so you're out there being this powerful person, well, you can absolutely succeed, but is it sustainable? Probably not. Why not? because ultimately you're still in the space of it's all about me, and I'm going to prove to the world that I can do this. And you haven't crossed that threshold to achieve the final pillar in the three pillars that make up for business success. And that final pillar is where you attach to something that's bigger than you, that inspires others around you enough that they want to push you forward. And at that point, you're tapping into universal energy. And that, of course, is the energy of purpose. So they're the three elements that are essential to your business success. And what we're going to look at today is one factor that can drain your passion so that you can't even get off the starting blocks. You can't tap into your power, and you certainly can't step outside of yourself and attach to something that's bigger than you and have a sense of purpose if you haven't got the energy to do it in the first place. So what is the piece that we're going to look at today? So essentially there are 12 accelerators, if you like, that define the pathway to get you from pain to passion, passion to power, and power to purpose. And the one that we're going to look at today, the one piece of the 12, is taming your antihero. But before we actually discuss, well, what does antihero even mean? Let's take a look at where you feel you're at in terms of your career path right now. And I've created this model called the 5 doors, which speaks to my program, the 5th door. And let's just take a look at the first 4 doors. And as I go through these, just see which one you relate to most in terms of your work. So we're not going into the other areas of your life, although of course, how you are in one area of your life tends to spill over into the others. But let's just look at how you relate to these in terms of your work/career, enterprise, company, organization. You know what I'm talking about. All right, so doorway 1, we call living hell. This is the door that most of us don't want to confront at all, and yet all of us have spent some time behind this door. Maybe you're behind this door right now. So living hell is whatever is your definition of the worst case scenario for you. It might be a chronic illness. It might be going bankrupt. It might be living with some kind of sense of enduring depression or anxiety. Who knows how living hell shows up? It has many different faces. But anyway, that's doorway 1. Door 2 is what we call the treadmill. So this is the life of absolute conformity and compliance, where you're basically doing the 9-to-5 humdrum life existence that, all the social pressures, society, family, peer groups, etc., have expect of you, and you haven't broken away from that. That's door 2. Door 3 is what we call roller coaster. And this is if you've broken away, maybe you've started your own business or moved to another country or done something fairly radical to define yourself as a bit of a breakaway. But instead of a smooth path to success, feels like a roller coaster where possibly there are more downs and ups. And at some point you might even want to be screaming, "Get me off." The next door, door 4, is an interesting door. We call it pipe dream, and that speaks to the opium dens of the past, where people were engaged in an idea of paradise. It was a delusion. It wasn't really true. And so this is if you have actually achieved everything that you wanted in life, only to arrive at this point and feel absolutely hollow, like there's something missing. So just think to yourself, of those 4 doors, where are you placed right now vis-a-vis your business? Just have a think about that. Now, the goal is whichever of those 4 doors you're behind, and this is not sequential, by the way, so that you could be in, like I was very fortunate to get to door 4. I had, this beautiful waterfront mansion in the Whitsundays, Australia's answer to the Caribbean, private beach next door, you name it, it had it. Money in the bank, beautiful family, solid marriage. And yet when I got to that point, I felt absolutely empty. And shortly after that point, we had the Great Recession of 2008, the global financial crisis, and that shot me straight back to doorway 1. So just because you get to doorway 4 is no guarantee that you're going to stay there. But the idea is that we want to get to the 5th door. Okay, so here's the 5th door. And I'm not going to give too much away about the fifth door just yet, but suffice to say, I call it the sweet spot. And I'll just explain in a moment how you arrive at your sweet spot. But when we look at this and you think about what door you're behind now, whichever one it is, my job is to help you get across to doorway 5. So generally the people I tend to work with most are either behind doorway 3 or 4. However, that's not to say that I can't help you if you feel that you're behind doorway 1 or 2. Doorway 1, I know for me, that was having PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, after that Great Recession, where we went from being worth squillions to losing nearly all of it. And my system just didn't cope. And I know I probably wasn't able to be helped at that point when I was right at the rock bottom of that pit. So you need to be in a space where you can start to think clearly and actually see that there's, an horizon out there and a hopeful future. And treadmill is if, again, you just need sufficient motivation to make a change in your life. And that's absolutely possible. So, but wherever you are, let's say it's not really where you have to stay for the rest of your life. Just know that you do have choices, and that the ultimate destination is really to have a life where you've got fulfillment and freedom, and financial freedom as well. And that's what we're talking about with doorway 5. So if that sounds attractive to you, keep listening, because I'm going to share with you now the thing that's going to stop you getting that. You need to be aware of this so that you can actually overcome it. So I call this trap that we tend to find ourselves in the crazy loop. And just see if you identify with this. What I'll do is I'll share with you my story, and you should be able to apply your own situation to this. What we're looking at here is a pattern. So the details of the pattern, our particular unique paths are all different. But just see if you recognize this pattern playing out in your life. So inevitably, at some stage in our life when we were very, very young, either in infancy or typically up to the age of 7, something happened to us that felt like a crime. And that might be a dramatic word to use, but it's very apt for a young child. It's typically where we felt unloved, unwanted, not good enough. That seed was sown at that point. So for me, at the age of 4, I was this adored only child until the day my mum and dad came home carrying my little sister in a bundle, who I thought they'd bought from a shop. And I remember in that moment just feeling this awful feeling that I wasn't enough to make mummy and daddy happy. So the next time we went shopping, I peeled off the price tags of these appliances in this department store where we were and stuck them on my baby sister's forehead, hoping someone would buy her back. Well, of course they didn't. But when we got home, my mum just flew into this huge rage. Janet, you naughty, naughty girl. She was yelling at me, chasing me around the house with the wooden spoon. And so what was happening here for the first time, I was experiencing something I didn't know to put a name on it. We know that it's in the area of guilt or shame. We're all hardwired with guilt and shame, but I didn't know that at the time. All I knew was that there was something very, very wrong with me, that I was a very bad girl. And so because it's too big for us to process at this young age, where we haven't been exposed to deep emotions like this, we create a story around it to help us make sense of what's going on in our life, to help us feel more safe, because that's what we want more than anything, is just to feel safe. And so this story, I call the core destructive belief. There is just one that sits at the bottom of the very foundation of who we believe ourselves to be. And it acts really like a type of curse because it condemns us to feeling that this is who we actually are. So there's a terrible misunderstanding in terms of our true identity. And so for me, this curse, if you like, this core destructive belief came directly from, the mouth of my mother, which was, I'm a naughty girl, or I'm naughty. And because it was tied around shame, every time this belief was triggered, I would feel terrible fear. And the fear, of course, is our core fear. So all of us, are fearful of things, and that's absolutely normal. But where it is tied to an abnormally dark emotion like guilt or shame, it's actually played up too loud. That fear actually stops us from being who we were, you know, the big person that we were destined to be. So my fear, my core fear, and you would have a core fear as well, probably a different one, but mine was directly tied, as they all are, to my particular curse, if you like, which was that I'm naughty. So of course it was a fear of getting into trouble. Now this is where we enter the realm of the anti-hero, because this fear, even though we are not aware of it, and it's playing in our subconscious, it's so strong that it acts as the main driver. So you might think that the thing driving your business success is this wonderful positive intention to make a difference in the world, but actually, until you've processed these aspects of you that lie beneath the surface, it's far more likely that you're going to be driven by fear. And that fear is really you trying to outrun this terrible sense of inner wrongness towards what we call the prison of the anti-hero. So the anti-hero is an aspect of you. It's a different persona. It's not who you really are. And this anti-hero, the role of the anti-hero is to undo this sense of wrongness that's affecting you inside. Now, as they say, two wrongs don't make a right. And so ultimately, try as hard as you try, the anti-hero isn't going to get you out of this feeling of being a failure, being wrong, or whatever that sense of inner wrongness is all about. What it does do is it succeeds in disconnecting you from your true self. And so we are ruled by these two false identities. One that's the curse, so if you like, that's the inner sinner, you know, that sits on one shoulder, and then the inner saint that sits on the other. And these two are doing battle while you're trying to make sense of your life and try and be successful. So can you start to see why it's so difficult? And the real problem with this, once this pattern is set, is that it tends to play out over and over again in your adult life. The difference now, of course, is that instead of the crime being perpetrated against you, you become the perpetrator of the crime. So to share with you what that looked like for me, probably the most dramatic example was when I was about 22 and 2 years into a relationship with my now husband, you know, who I've been married to for 40 years, who I loved very much at the time, but for some reason that I now understand, because I now understand that curse, if you like, that was driving my behavior. I had a one-night stand. And I just remember the next day looking at myself in the mirror and going, I don't even know who you are, you know, just feeling this deluge of shame take over. And this is really what then propelled basically, you know, the next decades of my life, where, and again, I wasn't aware of this at the time, but in hindsight, I can see how this played out, that I was driven to prove myself worthy, you know, to be the loyal wife, to be the devoted mother of 3, to be the tireless worker, you know, running 6 businesses. Now I understand why I did all of that. And fortunately, I've been able to break this crazy loop in myself. And that's what I'm here to do for you if you feel that you're being driven by something that's not serving you and is actually stopping you get the results you want. So how does this all play out? Well, imagine basically that there's something within you, this core destructive belief that makes you feel, for whatever reason, that you're bad, there's something wrong, you're not worthy of whatever it is. We can't guess it. This is not an intellectual process, but it is a process where we can actually find out what it is that's driving you, that dark side. And of course, what happens is, rather than face that, what we do is we run away from it. We run away to the anti-hero. And then these two aspects of who we are, who are not our true self, we tend to get engaged in a game of tug of war. So do you understand that, you know, that you're trying to prove how good you are, how successful you can be, but it's almost like you're trying to walk through quicksand, you're getting sucked back into this core destructive belief, and there you seem stuck. And from there, it can actually feel like, you know, you really can't move ahead from that place. Fortunately, the good news is when you can bring these two personas to the surface and understand how they're driving you, just in terms of making them visible. As they say, when you're in it, you can't see it, but once you can see it, you're no longer in it. And it's basically bringing these two aspects of you to the surface that enables you to see who you really are, to finally unveil your authentic self and step into your true power. Because the truth is, there is nothing wrong with you. You don't actually have an inner devil. And equally, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. The anti-hero is just a device. It's a strategy, if you like, to make you feel better about yourself, but it's not who you are. But in order to tame that anti-hero, you have to be able to understand it and recognize it and call it out. So let me share with you 3 of the most common types. So I've worked with many, many people, and I've actually identified 16 archetypes or anti-heroes, if you like. And we don't have time to go through all 16 right now, but let me just share with you the first 3 and see if you relate to any of these 3. So the first one we call the overachiever. So what's the overachiever's motto? The overachiever's motto is, it's all about how well I do. In other words, your feelings of success are tied not to how much you enjoy doing something or how much of a difference it might be making to those of others. It's just about the outcome. It's just about this feeling of I've achieved something. What's the problem with this? Well, the problem with this is that you tend to take failure very personally, because your whole sense of self is tied to outcome. Therefore, if you don't get the outcome that you want, you feel in some way that you're not up to it, you're not worthy, you're a failure. It's all about you. Whereas when something doesn't turn out, as Thomas Edison found out, how many attempts did he undertake to create the light bulb? Obviously, failure in that sense is a part of getting to where you need to get to. But if your identity is tied up in that, imagine how that's going to compromise your ability to take action. The next thing is, there's a secret feeling, and it feels like a dirty, shameful secret that you're not good enough, but it's very hard to actually tell that to others. So you go into this hyper overachiever mode. Quite often, if this is you, you'll be first at the office, last to leave. Does this sound familiar? You ring up your partner, sorry, I'm going to be late home again tonight. Does that become your broken record saying? Because there's so much sensitivity around, your worthiness tied up in your success, criticism is very hard to take, again, because it feels like a personal affront. Because you are so outcome focused, you tend to live very much in the future. And the problem with that, of course, is that you deny yourself any joy in the present. You're always, in fact, the best outcome tends to be, if anything, a sense of relief. If you do score a goal, it's like, oh, thank God I got that. But it's not really joy. In fact, I know myself, when I was in this space, I didn't actually know what joy felt like. We had to go to a workshop once to enact joy, and I went, I don't know what joy is, which is pretty sad, but it's very, very common. So that's that persona. The next one is the know-it-all. And so the motto of the know-it-all is, I will prove you wrong. What causes people to be so extreme in their approach? Well, I've encountered on several occasions people, maybe this is you, who had an adverse experience at school where a teacher might have said, in front of the class, might have humiliated you or said you were stupid. I worked with someone whose dad used to nickname him Stoop, short for stupid. It's incredibly common, and it's not uncommon for parents to put their kids down to make them feel better, as hard as that is to believe. But that is incredibly common. So when it's hardwired into you that somehow you don't know enough, that you're stupid, that you're inferior, you're inadequate in that sense, it's not hard to see how you're going to direct your life to proving that in fact you are very smart. And I've noticed that the people this affects most deeply, of course, the people who are really smart, because honestly, if you really were stupid and someone said you were stupid, you go, yeah, well, so what? I know that. It doesn't hurt so much. But if it's clearly not who you are, there's a real wound there. And this wound, if it's not healed, is going to go on making itself felt throughout your life. So it all tend to be argumentative. They're not very into taking advice. They tend to be highly critical and judge others very, very quickly. So always living in that state of comparison. because that was the programming that created this feeling in the first place, always being compared to others. You know, so and so got more than you in the exam, you know, big red cross on your test paper, all of that kind of thing creates this this know-it-all persona. Yeah, find it very hard to forgive. You know, there's a lot of resentment there and stuckness around that. Pretty much allergic to self-doubt. So just seemingly full of confidence, but coming from a place of, I have to, you know, prove myself. I have to prove you wrong. And sometimes, you know, you can tell if you're having a conversation with someone who's got this know-it-all persona, because they will constantly kind of correct you, even if it's in a very polite way. You know, you might say something, they go, well, actually, in my opinion, or what I've found to be true is, and they'll just refute what you've just said. And they have a tendency to talk more than to listen. So perhaps you know someone like that, or perhaps as I've gone through this, you go, that sounds strangely familiar. But just know that there's no judgment in this space. This is not you. All this is a compensating behavior. It's not you. The real you is someone quite different. And the real you is different from all the 16 personas that there are, that we call the anti-hero. Okay, one more, just because this one is extremely common. I wonder if from the visual you can guess what it is. All right, I'll give it away. The martyr. Oh, my goodness, I really related to this one. So how do we define the martyr? The martyr's motto is, I sacrifice myself, you know, my own needs for the needs of others. You see someone there, they're giving a piece of themselves away, yes, again, to make someone else complete at their own expense. So, but the problem here is, yeah, of course, we want to help, right? That's normal. But this is not helping for the right reason. It's helping from a sense of obligation or guilt. Okay, remember, two wrongs don't make a right. So we're trying to right our wrongness by another wrong, because actually you're not supposed to sacrifice yourself for the needs of others. You're supposed to put yourself first. That's called noble selfishness. But it's very hard if you've been wired to feel that the only way that you're worthy as a human is to put yourself last. Typically, you'll have a fear of speaking up. Might be because you don't want to hurt others. You feel their pain so intensely that you think if you say something that might hurt them, you're doing more harm than good, even if that's not true. Typically, because you don't like change, you'll get into a situation where you feel very trapped or stuck. And that's why, because you can't change things, you'll revert to complaining about them instead, which is pretty hard. It's not a very joyful place to be. It's not easy for others either, because they want to help you, but they can't. And that's simply because, again, your identity is tied up in this persona. And that's why you'll tend to reject offers of help. And accordingly, the irony in all of this is that even though you do what you think is going to make you happy, it's not that at all. You end up feeling resentful and energetically very drained. So that's the martyr. Now, the good news with all of these personas is they're not you, and you don't have to live behind these masks at all. Okay, that's all they ask. A matter of being able to identify which of these 16, and it might be a combination of several that you tend to veer towards. And I don't think anyone's immune from this. And we don't want to absolutely get rid of these, because actually part of these is useful. You know, it's just that when they're played up too loud, it's actually damaging, and it's going to stop you, you know, having that beautiful business, that success, that genuine feeling that you deserve this success, not that you somehow fluked it. You're denying yourself that if you stay attached to these false personas, these false identities. So looking at the 3 pillars of success, and the pathway to how to get you out of this, have a think for a moment where these anti-heroes are showing up in your life, or where there's any aspect of you that feels not really true to who you are, but it's a place where you it's like a place that you hide your true self, because it's like a cubby hole. For some reason, you feel safe in that space. So you have to ask yourself, what would it mean to have a life where you weren't caught between this sense of inner wrongness, the sinner and the saint? What would it feel like to be just you, just hanging in your natural gravity point where it's effortless, you just being you being that authentic self, stepping into your power? Just imagine for a moment, what would that feel like? What would it feel like for you to actually wake up in the morning, and rather than a pang of, oh, what do I have on today? And you want to duck under the covers again, you actually want to get out of bed because you feel excited. I couldn't imagine this feeling. As little as 10 years ago. But now I have this feeling every day. And it's not like every day is a brilliant day, but I know what to do if I am feeling a little bit off. I don't let that upset my whole day. So if you'd like to see how you can step out of this, let me share with you the rest of the steps that will guide you from where you are now to where you need to be. So let's just say that the 3 pillars, our 3 goals, are to achieve passion, power, and purpose. These are the 3 pillars of business success. What do you have to do? What are the steps you have to take to acquire all 3? So we've already talked about taming your anti-hero, but what's behind the anti-hero? We have to define that first. So the step before that is looking at curing the curse. What's that core destructive belief that has been driving your shit, just like mine was? That sense of that I'm naughty, that fear of getting into trouble caused me to do so many things, take out a margin loan that was really behind our financial collapse back in 2008. I can't tell you how many times my particular curse cursed my life, no matter how hard I tried to be good and noble and responsible. So we have to find what that is. But it's not hard, it's a process. And once we've done that, then we can get a sense of who your anti-hero is. We understand those 2 personas that have been playing out for you. And once you can see those, just like the fish in the fishbowl, once he can see the water that he's swimming in, then he can choose to get out of that fishbowl. And that's at that point where you actually find the real you. And this is a real point of emotional breakthrough. And for the people I've taken through this process, it's a feeling of relief and a feeling at the end of the day of calm, having made peace with your past and being okay with how you've shown up in the world, understanding who you are so that you can enter a state of radical acceptance of who you are and be okay and ultimately forgive yourself. And that's when you can really move on to the next step, which is just as important, but can't be achieved until we've done these preliminary steps. And the next step, of course, is unpacking your gift. Now, if something is infecting you beneath the surface where you think there's something inherently wrong with you, you're not going to accept your gift. You're not going to accept that thing that you are naturally good at. And so I've tried teaching this part without having done the first section. And honestly, for most people, it doesn't work. You have to accept yourself before you can accept your gift, this thing that you were born to share with the world, something that you're good at. And if, as you hear this, you're saying to yourself, but I don't think there's anything I'm particularly special at or unique at, then you clearly need to do this work, because I guarantee there's something that you are uniquely wired to do, and you just have to know what that is. So once you've unpacked your gift, then you can claim your genius. So how do I apply it? Where, is it, what is it? What's going to be my zone where my gift flourishes and shows itself to a better advantage? So this is where we have to understand your behavior profile. What are the 8 types of intelligence do you have? This is doing more diagnostic work so that you can get very, very clear, not just on where you're talented, but how to best apply that talent or that unique gift. And then finally, we bring that down to a self-portrait. So this is self-awareness on steroids. And I have to say, without self-awareness, I don't know how any of us are going to succeed in the future in a world dominated by AI. Our only safe place is by being able to tap into who we are, understand our intuitive self, build that emotional intelligence. And we can only do that with self-awareness. So this is what this program, this pathway is all about. building up your self-awareness so you are absolutely ready for whatever the future has to bring. And so the final piece in this, of course, is it's all very well to know who you are and know where you're uniquely gifted, but what are you going to do with that? You know, with that unique gift comes great responsibility. So, as they say, with great power comes great responsibility. And this is where you take that responsibility and apply it to something that you feel passionate about. So this is not a cause that's fashionable, that makes you feel worthy in the eyes of others. This will always come from your own personal life experience. Something that's affected you adversely is where that pain of childhood, from that childhood wound, is the best informant of what your purpose is. And so committing to that and going, oh, I finally found something I really believe in, because it moves me and it heals me to help others. It helps me in the same process. So finding what that is, committing to that, and then, hey, this is where we really enter into, you know, the real world. This isn't theoretical. It's not an intellectual exercise. This is where we actually get down to tin tacks. You create a project, and with that project, you take action. I share with you a great process for reverse engineering the goal to get to where you are now, so that you've got a step-by-step way of getting through this. And then you are ready to launch your new life. And that's really what it's all about. That most important thing, the last thing, is the ability to take action. Now, if you do all of these, this is when you're going to have the 3 keys to opening the 5th door. The first one being mindset. So you've got a set of resilience, of you're okay no matter what the future throws at you, a mindset that can deal with all the challenges, all the obstacles that are going to come your way, a mindset that's wired for success. And from there, you actually, by focusing on your power, you achieve mastery over what it is that you're wired to do. And once you have mastery and the mindset of resilience, you can apply both of those to putting yourself out there to make a big difference in the world, to add value to the lives of others, solve a problem, and accordingly, you're going to be rewarded for it financially and via fulfillment. And that's what having a life of meaning is all about. So they're the 3 keys. There's 3 things. That's a trifecta for opening the 5th door for you. So if you really want to accelerate your business, this is the path. These are the things you have to address. Now, I know you're probably thinking, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for this. Well, here's what I'm going to offer you. If you're not sure if this is right for you, and absolutely, if you want to talk to me, just jump on a call. That's no problem. But if you're still wondering about this, and I know a lot of people go, yeah, but this all sounds too much like hard work. I guarantee for you that this path, there's no simpler way that this path has been spelled out. And just to prove that to you, just go to the link below. I'm going to share with you a link in a moment, so get ready to write it down. And I'm going to share with you this quiz to help you actually get clear on what your life purpose is. So before I share that, I just want to say thank you for watching all the way to this point. And do remember that if you can get on top of yourself, if you can get out of your own way, everything falls into place from that. You are both your business's greatest liability and its greatest asset. And it's really up to you which of those 2 you're going to choose, whether you go to be your business's greatest asset or liability. But one of the keys is by deactivating your anti-hero. So I'm just going to share with you here the quiz. And it only takes a few minutes. And in a matter of minutes, you will get clear on your true life purpose. So wishing you all the best. And I look forward to speaking to you very soon.